On the evening of 2nd June 2023, a 35-year-old mother stood at her neighbor's front door in Ocala, Florida, after her children reported that an adult woman had thrown a roller skate at them. She wasn't planning a confrontation. She was planning a conversation. Behind the locked door, 58-year-old Susan Louise Lawrence held a .380 caliber handgun and within seconds would fire a single shot through it, striking the mother in the chest as her 9-year-old son watched. This documentary aims to present an honest and unfiltered account of the case surrounding Susan Louise Lawrence and the killing of Ajike Owens, a case that would reignite a national debate over race, self-defense, and the laws that govern both. Ajike Owens, known to friends and family as AJ, was a 35-year-old single mother living in an apartment complex on Southwest 107th Lane in Ocala, Florida. She had 4 children, sons Isaac, Israel, and Titus, and daughter Africa. At the time of her death, they ranged in age from 3 to 12 years old. Owens worked as a manager at a local McDonald's restaurant, a position that demanded long hours and constant scheduling adjustments. Neighbors would later describe how she rearranged her shifts to attend her children's football games, cheerleading competitions, and gymnastics classes. She served as team mom for multiple sports teams and volunteered in her children's classrooms. One neighbor recalled that Owens sacrificed so her children could attend private school and participate in extracurricular activities. She was supermom, her mother Pamela Diaz later told reporters. She was the football mom. She worked hard to provide a better life for them. Owens was a devoted mother who got along well with her neighbors, but there was just one small problem. Susan Louise Lawrence was 58 years old and lived alone in an apartment directly across from the Owens residence. According to her own statements to police, she worked from home and valued peace and quiet. Between the apartment buildings sat a grassy common area where neighborhood children regularly played, a space that Lawrence reportedly claimed as her own. Beginning in the month of January 2021, deputies from the Marion County Sheriff's Office responded to what Sheriff Billy Woods later described as 6 to 8 documented calls involving Lawrence and the Owens household. The central friction was the children playing in the grassy area adjacent to Lawrence's apartment. According to an arrest affidavit, Lawrence was known to harass the children by video recording them with her phone as they played in the open field. Neighbors described her behavior as aggressive and racially charged. "Everybody in this neighborhood has feuded with this lady over our children," neighbor Phyllis Wills later told reporters. "Every time they've went even in the patch of grass over there, she would be like, 'Get off of my lawn, you B-m, or you are S, or you N-word.' She would wave guns at them." The friction between Lawrence and the Owens household continued for over 2 years. However, in the month of June 2023, this would all change. On the evening of 2nd June 2023, Owens's children were playing outside near the apartment complex. Some were playing basketball in the street, while others gathered in the grassy common area. Israel, then 9 years old, had left his tablet on the ground in the field. When he went to retrieve it, Lawrence, who had been filming the children with her phone while reportedly giving them the middle finger, allegedly picked it up. According to witness statements, Lawrence threw the tablet on the ground, striking Israel in the foot. She then threw a pair of roller skates at the children and began swinging an umbrella at Isaac, the oldest of the Owens children. Isaac told his younger brother to go get their mother, while Lawrence retreated inside her apartment. At 8:54 p.m., she called 911. "I've got kids trespassing, leaving all their toys around, just screaming, yelling, just being absolutely obnoxious," Lawrence told the dispatcher. "There are several kids out there right now. I'm fearing for my life. I'm very scared." The dispatcher advised her to stay inside with her doors locked while police responded. Lawrence confirmed she understood. Deputies from the Marion County Sheriff's Office were dispatched to the residence in response to her report of trespassing. Around that same time, Owens' children arrived home and told their mother what had happened, that the neighbor had taken Israel's tablet, thrown it at him, hurled roller skates in their direction, and swung an umbrella at Isaac. Owens decided to confront Lawrence directly. She walked across the street to Lawrence's apartment with Israel by her side. The 911 call had ended at 8:59 p.m. Law enforcement was en route. Lawrence knew officers were coming. She had been told to stay inside and wait. 2 minutes later, Ajike Owens stood at the front door. At approximately 9:01 p.m., deputies from the Marion County Sheriff's Office were still en route to the residence when a second 911 call reported gunfire. Upon arrival, officers found Ajike Owens lying on the ground outside Lawrence's apartment with a single gunshot wound to her chest. She was transported to a local hospital, where she was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. According to investigators and witness statements, Owens had approached the front door and knocked several times, calling out for Lawrence to come outside. The door was locked. It had no window. Lawrence never opened it. Instead, she retrieved a .380 caliber handgun she had purchased approximately 1 year earlier, following a previous confrontation with Owens, and fired a single shot through the closed door. The bullet struck Owens in the upper right side of her chest at close range. Her 9-year-old son, Israel, was standing beside her when she fell. "Oh my God, this lady just tried to break down my door. I shot through the door," Lawrence told the dispatcher in her second call, placed just minutes after her first. Neighbors rushed outside after hearing the gunshot. One witness later described seeing Israel gasping for air, telling her that his mother had been shot by the lady across the street. Owens was still breathing when emergency responders arrived. Despite life-saving efforts, she could not be revived. Ajike Chantrell Owens, 35 years old, mother of 4, was dead. Lawrence was not immediately arrested. Her invocation of Florida's Stand Your Ground law, a statute that permits the use of deadly force if a person reasonably believes they face imminent death or serious injury, would delay charges for 4 days. In the days following the shooting, Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods stated that his department was evaluating Florida's Stand Your Ground statute before making an arrest. Speaking to reporters on 5 June 2023, he noted that investigators had initially only heard from Lawrence and were still attempting to interview witnesses, including Owens's children. The decision not to immediately take Lawrence into custody sparked public outrage. "This is an unconscionable killing of a mother who simply knocked on a door," civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump stated, publicly calling for Lawrence's arrest. Crump, who had previously represented the family of Trayvon Martin in a case that brought national attention to the same Florida statute, joined Owens's family in demanding accountability. On 6 June 2023, approximately 30 protesters gathered outside the Marion County Judicial Center. State Attorney William Gladson met briefly with the group, urging patience and explaining that investigators were still processing physical evidence, digital records, and eyewitness statements. That same day, detectives conducted a second interview with Lawrence. By the end of that interview, she was placed under arrest and charged with manslaughter with a firearm, culpable negligence, battery, and 2 counts of assault. The interrogation that preceded her arrest would reveal the full extent of what Lawrence knew and what she had done to prepare. During the interrogation on 6 June 2023, Lawrence told detectives she had been in fear for her life when Owens approached her door. She claimed Owens had been banging so hard that everything in the apartment started shaking. She stated that Owens had screamed threats through the door. Then she started banging so hard, everything started shaking, Lawrence told detectives. And I'm like, "You really need to leave." And she's going, "I'm going to f***ing kill you. I just panicked. I don't even actually remember picking up the gun. I just remember shooting." Detectives challenged her account. They noted that her first 911 call had ended at 8:59 p.m., and within 2 minutes, she had placed a second call reporting that she had fired the gun. "Within 2 minutes, she showed up and did all these things," a detective responded. "You pulled the trigger, then found your phone and called 911. Lawrence also admitted to using racial slurs against the neighborhood children. According to the arrest affidavit, she acknowledged having used the N-word toward children out of anger in the past and calling them other derogatory terms. She admitted to throwing objects at them, including the roller skates and umbrella on the night of the shooting. Perhaps most significantly, She admitted to researching stand your ground and self-defense laws in the recent past, prior to the fatal confrontation. Left alone in the interrogation room with a notepad and pen, Lawrence wrote a message intended for Owens' children. A detective later read it aloud. "I am so sorry for your loss. I never meant to kill your mother. I was terrified your mom was going to kill me. I shot out of fear." She was arrested moments later. The charges: manslaughter with a firearm, culpable negligence, battery, and 2 counts of assault. Lawrence pleaded not guilty and was held on a $150,000 bond. In the month of August 2024, more than a year after the shooting, the trial of Susan Lawrence commenced in Marion County Circuit Court. A 6-person jury, all white, was seated to hear the case. Owens' family expressed disappointment in the jury's composition, but stated they believed in equal justice. The prosecution argued that Owens posed no imminent threat to Lawrence. She was unarmed. She stood outside a locked door. Police were already en route. Prosecutor Adam Smith told the court that Lawrence had the presence of mind to call 911, knew law enforcement was coming, and chose to retrieve a gun and fire through a closed door anyway. The defense called expert witnesses to testify on Lawrence's behalf. Dr. Yenis Castillo, a psychologist, testified that Lawrence suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of multiple past traumas, including childhood sexual abuse. Lawrence's sister, Ellen, testified that their father had been physically, emotionally, and sexually abusive to both of them, and that their family had a history of mental illness and addiction. The defense argued that Lawrence's PTSD impaired her judgment during the fatal encounter. On 16 August 2024, after 2.5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict: guilty of manslaughter with a firearm. 3 months later, on 25 November 2024, Lawrence, now 60 years old, appeared before Judge Robert Hodges for sentencing. The maximum possible sentence was 30 years. Her defense requested probation and PTSD treatment. The prosecution pushed for the maximum penalty. "I find that the shooting was completely unnecessary," Judge Hodges stated. In this case, Ms. Lawrence was behind the door. The door was locked. She had already called law enforcement. They were en route. She knew they were en route. She was in a relatively safe position. The judge rejected the defense's argument that Lawrence's history of abuse should serve as a mitigating factor. He sentenced her to 25 years in state prison. "I am so sorry I took AJ's life. I never intended to kill her," Lawrence told the court before sentencing. "I would trade my life." Owens' mother dismissed the apology as insincere, a last-ditch attempt to save herself. The impact of Lawrence's actions was immediate and devastating. The most obvious and direct victims were Ajike Owens' 4 children, Isaac, Israel, Africa, and Titus, who lost their mother at ages ranging from 3 to 12 years old. Israel, just 9 at the time, was standing beside his mother when the bullet struck her. Isaac, the eldest at 12, attempted to perform CPR on his mother as she lay dying outside Lawrence's door. Both older boys now carry profound guilt. Israel has stated that if he had never left his tablet behind, his mother would still be here. Isaac blames himself for being unable to revive her. Since the shooting, all 4 children have lived with their grandmother, Pamela Diaz. The psychological toll has required ongoing therapy and counseling. Diaz has described watching her grandchildren struggle to process a trauma no child should ever have to endure. "Susan's reckless act of manslaughter rendered my 4 grandchildren motherless," Diaz told the court during sentencing. Sadly, Titus, Africa, Israel, and Isaac have to live their remaining lives as motherless children. Our pain and suffering didn't end when we buried Ajike. Our pain and suffering didn't end when Susan was found guilty. Our pain and suffering will last a lifetime. The secondary victim wasn't an individual. It was the already strained and questioned integrity of Florida's self-defense laws. The case of Ajike Owens does not exist in a vacuum. It highlights a vulnerability that civil rights advocates argue has disproportionately endangered Black Americans for nearly 2 decades. In 2005, Florida became the first state in the nation to enact a stand your ground law, legislation that removes the duty to retreat and permits deadly force if a person reasonably believes they face imminent death or serious injury. Since then, more than 30 states have adopted similar statutes. Research published in the journal JAMA Network Open found that these laws were associated with an 8 to 11% increase in monthly homicide rates nationwide. In Florida specifically, the increase was estimated at 32%. The parallels to the 2012 killing of Trayvon Martin, an unarmed black teenager shot by neighborhood watch volunteer George Zimmerman in Sanford, Florida, were unavoidable. Civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who had represented Martin's family, now stood alongside the Owens family, demanding accountability under the same legal framework. This is a senseless act made possible by lax gun laws and a culture that too often defaults to shooting first and asking questions later, stated the executive director of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. In response to this tragedy, Owens's family sought to transform grief into action. In the months following her daughter's death, Pamela Diaz co-founded a nonprofit organization titled Standing in the Gap. The fund is dedicated to providing financial assistance and counseling resources for families affected by racially motivated violence. It also advocates for legislative reform of stand your ground laws, the same statutes that delayed Lawrence's arrest and allowed her to initially claim self-defense after shooting an unarmed mother through a locked door. In the month of October 2025, the case became the subject of a Netflix documentary titled The Perfect Neighbor. The film, told almost entirely through police body cam footage, 911 audio, and courtroom video, brought renewed national attention to Owens's story. 1 year after her death, Owens's children gathered at a memorial service to honor their mother. One of them read a poem aloud. "My mom is my hero. Forever will she be in my heart." The children danced in tribute to her memory. "My daughter always would say the world would know her name," Diaz stated. "The perfect neighbor has made her word come true. Her legacy lives on, and the world will know her name." What are your thoughts on Florida's Stand Your Ground law and the protections, or dangers, it provides to those who invoke it? Share your perspectives in the comments below. If you found this documentary informative, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more in-depth explorations of often overlooked, lesser-known stories. Who else would you like to see us detail next? Your engagement helps us continue to shed light on otherwise unheard narratives.